Good morning.
Thank you very much, Steve, for joining us. I just look at some of the front pages of the national papers today. The Herald, which you used to be political editor, Murrell is released as SNP probe continues. These extraordinary pictures of police officers, police vans outside Nicola Sturgeon and Peter Murrell's home, cordon pulled up, a big tent, where investigators are working from, a police scene with shovels in the back garden. I mean, really quite extraordinary scenes to be happening, and lots of people sort of talk about, how the mighty are fallen. This couple, the power couple of Scotland, Chief Executive of the SNP, First Minister of Scotland and leader of the SNP, both having resigned, and now this police investigation. Now, we don't want to have any impact on a live police investigation, even though he was questioned for almost 12 hours. He has been released without charge, but it is still live. The political implications of this, as Alan Tolhurst was just saying, are absolutely huge, aren't they, on the SNP and their future success?
I think you're right. I think Alan is absolutely right that for the last 20 years, the SNP have presented a very united front. They haven't let anybody else in. They haven't been questioned. It changed actually after Alex Salmond took over. Alex Salmond did allow internal debate in the party. Then he sort of left the stage. Nicola Sturgeon inherited it. And since then, there has been an iron discipline on the party. And she has got some very clever, very good colleagues who weren't allowed to influence the debate. People like Joanna Cherry warned of this impending disaster. They said that they weren't allowed to see the books. So the Treasurer resigned. Then Joanna Cherry resigned. She said her audit committee couldn't do their job because they weren't allowed in. So I don't actually know what they were thinking about, because, chickens do come home to roost. So any audit committee of a tiny golf club somewhere in the middle of England has got to talk about good governance, far less a major political party who's forming the government. It's extraordinary.
It is, really, isn't it? I mean, it's £600,000. These were campaign donations. These donations were aimed at, funds for a second referendum campaign. That campaign is not happening. We don't know what's happened to that money. And this is obviously the subject of the police investigation. But again, this would have been public donations. These were from, ordinary Scottish voters, and their money, it's unaccounted for. Whatever happens with that investigation, this sort of exposure, this massive fissure, these internal divisions in the SNP, that was already exposed. The trans debate actually exposed it an awful lot. We know people like Joanna Cherry actually involved on this, and of course with Kate Forbes as who came second in the leadership contest. Do you think that if this arrest, the details of this investigation had come to the fore of the public notoriety sooner, if this arrest certainly had happened sooner during that leadership contest, we could have seen a different outcome? Because we already saw Peter Murrell, the chief exec, Nicola Sturgeon's husband. He'd resigned over the fact that there had been basically a lie told to the Scottish media about the number of Scottish SNP members who had resigned from the party, so who had actually given up their membership, and they'd lost some 30,000 members. And this was, we think, kept quiet because it made it seem, well, there were already quite a lot of divisions within the party, disquiet over the leadership. And Kate Forbes and her campaign pushed on this issue. If all of this had been known beforehand, is it likely that 48% for Kate Forbes and that 52% for the continuity candidate, Humza Yousaf, could have actually been turned around and we would have a very different leadership now?
We'll never know, but I certainly think so. I think many people who voted at the beginning for Humza Yousaf regretted their vote immediately as the campaign went on without this scandal. I think that Kate Forbes ran a good campaign. I think it is very likely that she would have won. It is actually a very sad day. There are some very good SNP, decent SNP members who will be very saddened and horrified by this.
Yeah.
Humza Yousaf was Nicola Sturgeon's candidate. John Sweeney went on, the deputy leader of the SNP, went on to the airwaves to back him. People, the big question, one of the big questions is, how much did they know? Did they know that they had to have a quick campaign to get, through this, to get their candidate in place before the wheels came off the bus and this arrest took place? I mean, how long did anybody know that when the Nicola Sturgeon stood down at the beginning, I was in Edinburgh, and immediately people were saying, there's more to this than meets the eye.
We were, weren't we? Because there was, the straw that broke the camel's back was this big debate over, the trans rights. But everyone was saying it can't just be this. But then her resignation followed Jacinda Ardern's in New Zealand, and this idea that, well, it's been a very difficult time, and taking people through the pandemic, the high pressure, and just wanting to go off to maybe another job, United Nations or something like that. But that's the question: is did she resign then because she knew this was coming? Did she know about this possible arrest? But also big questions for police in Scotland. Did they inform her? Did they delay the arrest and the culmination of this investigation, which has been going on for 2 years, until after a new leader was installed? So, I mean, there are some serious questions to be answered about this.
These are all perfectly credible questions. And Jacinda Ardern stepped down. She had a credible candidate to stand.
Well, we've seen him since. He doesn't look that credible. Again, someone who still doesn't know what a woman is.
I think you'll find out that he probably is credible for many people, but that's another argument. But to stand down after being in such a strong position in Scotland for 8 years, to have no clear candidate prepared, ready, trained for government, if you like, seemed extraordinary. So that certainly added grist to the story. And I don't think many people will be convinced that she didn't know, however much she denies it.
How much does this tarnish her reputation? She has been an extraordinary political operator, an extraordinary performer, done fantastic work in elections. She somehow has escaped unscathed in terms of popularity and criticism over her handling of the pandemic, even though actually, if you look at the actual data, she did much worse than Boris Johnson on lots of issues. She seems to have incredible, got name recognition, a lot of support in Scotland, even from people who are not nationalists. How much does this damage her reputation more than, frankly, her legacy in government should?
Well, her legacy in government is terrible. The delivery of the Scottish government is awful in every single area of Scottish life. She did have a good pandemic, I think partly because she wasn't Boris Johnson and her presentational skills were much better. It's bound to damage her. How much, I don't know. There is a very, very large core of SNP supporters who actually don't care who the leader of the SNP is. But there will be some soft SNP supporters who will be scandalised by this and whose votes will probably go elsewhere.